welcome to Africa2U. I'm Vivian Birchall, your host. Africa is a conglomeration of peoples and cultures. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the relationship between North African and Sub-Saharan African history and culture. A friend recently asked me, and I quote, "Africa is commonly used in this country, United States, as if it were a country with a monolithic culture. Certainly, the culture along the Mediterranean coast is more Arabic than the rest of the continent, but to what degree are the cultures among the sub-Saharan countries common to them, and to what extent do they differ?" This question has influenced this episode. In the Western world, specifically the United States, when the phrase of African descent is used, it means black or black African. That is the definition that works in this part of the world. I have never seen an Arab of African origin being referred to as African American, even when their ancestry is continental Africa. For purposes of today's episode, when I talk about North Africa, I'm referring to the people of the Maghreb and Sahara region. Historically, the indigenous people of North Africa before the Arab and Muslim conquests were Berber people. Many of these people adopted whichever language was spoken by their conquerors or trade partners. Due to the transportation barrier caused by the Sahara Desert, they interacted more with European and Arab traders who used the Mediterranean Sea as their trade routes and picked up their culture. However, there were also trans-Saharan trade routes and the Nile Valley migratory routes that led various groups of people from North Africa into sub-Saharan Africa and settled there. Culturally, as a result of the trans-Saharan trade, Berber merchants and nomads incorporated the land of the Sudan and other lands in sub-Saharan region into the Islamic world and culture. Culture is language and the general way of life or organization of our community. Let's take a look at the relationship in languages. North Africa is thought to be different from sub-Saharan Africa, but many people do not realize that there is an Afro-Asiatic, also known as Hamito-Semitic, language family of the North African people that has languages spoken by many people in sub-Saharan Africa. These are the Berber, Chadic, Cushitic, Egyptian, that's the Coptic, which is still being used as liturgical language by the Arab-speaking Coptic Orthodox Christians. Then we have the Omotic and Semitic. I will add Arabic to this list. It is spoken in much of Africa, though there are different varieties of Arabic. The Saharan dialects are more conservative than the coastal dialects. So, there is a culture influence from the north, especially in Central and much of coastal Africa. The cultures of the Maghreb and the Sahara combine the indigenous Berber who live in Libya, Algeria, Morocco, Niger, Mali, Mauritania, Tunisia, Burkina Faso, and Egypt, Arabs, and elements of neighboring parts of Africa. This is evident in the cuisine, religion, music, and other components of culture. So, it is not surprising that, for example, an Algerian would have more in common with someone from Burkina Faso than with a Middle Eastern. I'd like to point out that when I look at the ancient African kingdoms and modern settlements, I see a collection of people from various origins, either through migration in search for land, for agriculture and cattle, or through conquest. I do not necessarily see people with a single line of ancestry or heritage. Today, majority of the different countries and communities are a blend of ancestries, traditional customs, and beliefs with modern societal practices. Speaking of migration, did you know that Africa has not always been a desert? The region enjoyed tropical climate. And this desertification was an abrupt process sparked off by the movement of the tectonic plates that also created the Mediterranean Sea and the Alps. The emergence of the Sahara affected the plants and animals and led to the people in the region to migrate to the southern areas for their survival. Some settled along the Nile Valley, which had been the primary migratory route for early modern humans out of Central Africa and into Western Asia. And the continuous inhabitation along the riverbanks eventually grew to a large, influential civilization. Other cultural similarities between the North and Sub-Saharan Africa cultures include the tribal and clan systems and their agriculture and pastoralist economies. So, what is the difference between the North and Sub-Saharan African cultures? The difference is that most of the North African cultures has bigger and more conservative Arab influence compared to the Sub-Saharan Africa. So, as we have learned, there are points of cultural convergence between the North and Sub-Saharan Africa, despite their evident differences. The beauty of Africa is in the diversity of its cultures. Every country in Africa has its unique languages, cultural and religious diversity, but together as a continent, we share similar values, ways of life, and for some, ancestry. In the future episodes, we will look at in more detail at the Nilo-Saharan people who are indigenous to the Nile Valley and how their way of life as nomads is similar to the nomads of the Maghreb and Sahara region. Their language family includes 204 diverse languages spoken by 35 million people in the interior of North Africa, the Nile Basin, Central Sahara, and the Sub-Saharan Africa. I hope this episode has shed some light on the relationship between the cultures in two distinctive regions of Africa. Tune in for more about Africa on ActonTV or visit us at www.actontv.org and at www.facebook.com/Africa2U.Acton. Thank you for watching. Till next time.